talented, award-winning performance poet, Puno Selesho. She writes poetry about women, societal issues, and her life growing up in the suburbs. So what else can I say except good morning to you and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Where are you from and why poetry?
So I grew up in Pretoria East my entire life. I'm still in Pretoria East right now. And going to high school there, I started writing poetry. It started in my journals, really. I started journaling and it started sounding a bit creative. And it was such a cool way to express myself. I entered a talent show competition at school doing that. And since then, it's just been a roller coaster ride. And I've really loved it ever since, yeah.
And what do you write about? And I'll tell you why I ask you this. Because a lot of people would assume, oh no, you grew up in the suburbs. You don't know struggle. What could you possibly have to say to us? How do you then express yourself, and what do you say to people who say that?
Just because you grow up in the suburbs doesn't mean you are disconnected from the whole of South Africa, and I think it comes with its own set of complexities, which is where I started when I wrote my poetry, dealing with my own complexities, being a born free in South Africa and how that all pans out, and all the cultural complexities, family things. In my family, my sister and my brother have a complete different upbringing to what I have, and having to deal with that and growing up in a super white environment and having to figure yourself out. So you cannot say that you are disconnected, because you still have your own political story and your own political narrative.
It may manifest differently, but it doesn't lack, it's not irrelevant just because it's different.
Yeah.
Now tell me a little bit about the poem, I Am an African. Is it related to what you've just told me?
Absolutely. Yeah. That is probably the second poem I ever wrote.
What?
Yeah, I wrote it in 2010, and it came from a very angry place. Not a bitter place, but just an angry place. It was the first time where I decided to stand up for myself, to be like, yes, just because I've spoken English most of my life, I've grown up in the suburbs, I love my parents' languages and I'm learning still now day by day, but that doesn't mean you have the right to deem me as lesser, to judge me, to look down on me, to make me feel worth nothing, really. So I stood up for myself, and it's a poem that not many people find palatable. No, not a lot of people like it, but I'm okay with that, because I think a lot of people for once were like, yeah, I felt like that for a very long time and I couldn't express it, so I'm happy to do it on their behalf.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, when you mentioned this, it reminds me of the popular book by Kopano, Coconut.
Yes.
Coconut, yes.
Yes.
So the themes are similar.
Absolutely. When I read Coconut, which was about 2 months ago,
yeah,
and every page I was like, yes, this is my life. Yes. Yeah. So it hit home, it really did. And I love the fact that even in other literary works, the theme is coming out, because as I said, after 1994, the complexities are more than just black and white. Even in black, there's different shades of grey. So yeah.
Awesome. And now you went on to travel because of your poetry. You went to Europe, you won awards. Tell me about that journey.
So I went to Germany, which was crazy. I'd never left South Africa in my life.
Yeah, you're still in Pretoria.
Yes.
They're all
then in Pretoria.
What was Germany like?
Germany was amazing. It was such a short trip. I went to Berlin for a conference called Republica. It was a digital conference, and I mean, I'm a law student, so I don't know anything about technology really, but I was there speaking up for women in the digital space, because there's a lot of male-dominated spaces. This could range from business to technology to churches, and just advocating for a stronger female voice, and just asking men to not be intimidated by us or see us as lesser, but to understand that us in our own skin, in our own ways, we have a strength and a power that we actually can bring to the table. Yeah, yeah.
And I think your voice has done just that, you know, displayed the strength and the power that lies within yourself as well. And I want you then to tell us about the themes that you explore and why you do that. I first asked you when we began having a conversation off here, I said to you, what is a performance poet, you know, and how does it differ to a regular poet? So maybe tell us a little bit about your craft and also some of those themes that you delve into.
So I usually say that I write poetry for public and personal spaces. So for the public spaces, and that's where the performance comes in, you know you're going to be standing in front of the audience. Sometimes small audiences in coffee shops, sometimes on grand stages at conferences. So you obviously want to address issues that are pertinent to that country that you're in, to that society, whether it's issues on women and women abuse, women in the male spaces, issues about race. One of my recent poems that I wrote is called Swart Gevaar, and it's about how do white people people perceive black people in their spaces. In Pretoria East, that's like weird for you to be there. You can feel sometimes they get uncomfortable, and these things are not spoken about. So the public spaces, the themes are always about women, always about race, culture, and just the fun stuff as well, the things that make South Africa South Africa. For the personal spaces, obviously it's catharsis for myself, dealing with my own things, writing about the softer things in life, the funny things, the silly things, the things that I struggle with. And I do share them in public spaces just because I know somebody out there will relate. So it could be anything. But art is healing. Art is really, really healing. So it's important to not just write to perform. I recently read something that said, how worth it is it to write a poem if you know that nobody's going to read it? And that hit me to be like, yo, don't just write for people. Write also for yourself, because that's where it started. Yeah. Yeah,
I love that. I think that's so profound, and I mean, I see you in my mind's eye, and I'm thinking, wow, is this the next Lebo Mashile? Is this, you know, someone who's going to put us on the world map, the likes of your Miriam Makebas and all of that? Is this something that you are pursuing? You did mention that you're studying law, but are you looking, you know, to maybe branch out into poetry and make a living out of it?
So this is the question of my year right now.
Oh, okay. I see.
So difficult, at a crossroad, because this is my final year in my law studies. I've pursued social entrepreneurial ventures. I've also done the poetry. So I don't even know what next year looks like for me. But I am super, super open to pursuing poetry, super open to being an entrepreneur, but also combining that with my legal studies. I don't think I'm going to be a full-time advocate and attorney, but I know that my degree is going to boost me in any direction that I go, definitely.
I couldn't agree with you more, because it gives you a social justice perspective and the difference between right and wrong. And you're a great advocate, in fact, for community advancement and development, so much so that I know you do, I'm not sure what it's called, but you gather dresses for matriculants who can't afford a matric dance dress, and you disperse them to those young girls.
Yeah, that's called the Cherry Blossom Project. And in this half of the year, it's like the most important time. We're trying to collect 1,000 dresses by the end of the year, which is crazy. But the more dresses we get, the more girls we can help and we can reach. I've seen those girls. We've been running since 2014, and over the years we've helped many, many girls. How they light up, how they are so surprised that such beautiful garments can belong to them, that they are royalty. And for that, I hope it plants in them a mentality and a worth that goes with them throughout their lives.
It affirms them. I love it. And you know what else will affirm us? Your beautiful poem, I Am an African. So I'm going to hand it over to you before we go, because we must hear your work.
Absolutely. Thank you. I will stand and do it. This is called I Am an African. I am an African. Typical lines. With it comes tradition and religion. You sit there with expectations of rich soil, beautiful grasslands, people with extreme African dark tans. Well, I have concrete and pits of sand, milky skin surrounding me. My stars move with flight, and out of my townhouse windows I see them, then quickly out of sight. Clicks and beats you desire to roll off my tongue, but instead you hear evidence of previous colonies formed by British sons. You desire my eyes to feast on Drum Magazine, but I'm holding my fair lady. Similarly, I'll ignore generations for glee. My plate is not filled with samp and beans, but sushi, beef fillets, all trimmed and lean, close to Master Chef regime. I chuckle as my fellow shaded brothers and sisters say, "Ufana na mlungu." I tell them to translate what they convey. The mockery continues in vernac. It's like a membership in the Black United Community is what I lack. Am I not an African too? Has my upbringing in the suburbs made me lose my roots? I've lost my label of black, and a coconut is what I've been tagged. But today, I refuse to allow your pencil to draw a picture of who I am. For I am as African as the music and life, the beat, the melody, and the tune. I have a twinkle in my eye that reflects the sub-Saharan moon. I am a daughter of this land. I am a child of Azania. I love my country and I celebrate my modern culture. So today, I remove these limitations and I claim my identity back, because an African is exactly what I am.